Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for choosing to be here today. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you're new here. Today we're talking about the difference between being judgmental versus being discerning. So for a lot of us in the world, especially those of us who are women, we get taught that those are the same thing and they get conflated and there's confusion. And, if you have a boundary or you want to say no to something, or you've seen evidence to show you that you want to say yes or no to something, or you have limits or whatever, we've been taught that those two things are the same thing. And so if you have made a decision based on what you've seen, that you're being judgmental. Like stop judging this, like just. And so today I want to talk about splitting, like looking at the nuances and the difference between those two things. So if we look at the definition of those, being judgmental, the definition is having or displaying an excessively critical point of view. Okay, excessively critical here. And discerning, using discernment, is seeing and understanding clearly and intelligently. So even just thinking about those two things, right? So judgmental, again, having or displaying an excessively critical point of view, and discerning is seeing and understanding clearly and intelligently. So when we think about those two things in situations where you've been in before, right? Judgment is um, Judgment is when there's a preconceived notion. Maybe it's not based in reality. It's not helpful. It doesn't actually matter, this thing that's happening. We just decided it mattered because we're projecting onto it, right? So one example could be if you're judgmental of the clothes someone is wearing because you don't like that color, because you don't like them or whatever, right? So being honest with yourself and asking, like, is this actually harming me? Is this actually something that whatever, right? And like, not do I agree with this or not? Is that a choice I would make for me personally, right? But am I being judgmental, right? Judgmental could be like, well, I don't like anyone who eats pineapples on their pizza and they're stupid and they're whatever, right? Overly critical, excessively critical point of view about something that is actually neutral and doesn't actually harm you. So judgmental, it's like, again, preconceived. It's not helpful. It's just thinking about excessively critical, right? Is this necessary? Is this something that's actually harming anyone, or am I just personally bothered by it when it actually doesn't matter, right? And then discernment, you can think of it more of like information has been presented to you. You've made a decision based on what you've seen, what you've heard. There's evidence, right? So it's, like if you see someone who has lied a bunch of times, then maybe you're not gonna be the most open with them or tell them like a lot of details about your life, right? If you see someone who talks badly about people who they're supposedly friends with, maybe you don't want to be friends with that person anymore, right? That's not being judgmental. That's saying, here's information I've seen, here's evidence, here's proof, and I don't want to do that to myself. I don't want to be engaged in that. I don't want to whatever, right? If someone says they're going to do something for you and then they don't do that for you, they don't keep their word 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Maybe I don't want to have my word kept with them anymore. Maybe I don't want to have patience with that anymore. Maybe I don't want to try and put energy in there anymore. And that's not being judgmental, right? Judgmental would be like if you call a name, or if you're overly mean, or again, like excessively critical, think about those two words. But just making a decision and changing your boundaries based on information you've seen is different than being judgmental. So using your own discernment and saying like, this person really isn't the most honest person, or this person, maybe does or says things that don't line up with my values and my morals, so I don't want to be near them. And that's not being judgmental, right? That's using evidence that you've seen, things from the past, that this person's behavior as a way to form the boundaries you want to have with them. And again, not in a way that's like they, I don't know, like again, I'll just use the pineapple on pizza example, right? They eat pineapple on pizza, so I don't want to be near them ever. It's like, well, was that like actually helpful? No, probably not, right? So being judgmental versus being discerning, it's some questions you can ask yourself is like, where is this thought coming from? Have I seen evidence of this before? Is this in a way to kind of like protect myself and set boundaries for myself and kind of, this is the values and frameworks I have, and this isn't behavior or actions that align with that for me, right? Versus judgmental is just kind of like excessively critical, preconceived, not necessarily true, right? But using discernment is, here's what I've seen, here's the evidence, here's what has happened, and I don't want to open myself up to that for whatever reason, right? So those reflexive questions. Has there been repeated patterns? Has there been behaviors that have been repeated that are kind of communicating to me what type of person this is, or the way they act, or the way they behave? And again, it doesn't mean you have to like be mean to them or go off on them or anything, but it's just saying what type of, do I want that person in my space? Do I want to have a relationship with them? Like, obviously, too, sometimes we can't control, we have to engage with certain people, right? But what extent do I want to engage with them, right? Or, okay, every time I talk to this person about this particular topic, they yell at me or they get really triggered and it's not helpful. It's not a productive conversation. And so using that discernment, like, okay, I don't want to repeat this pattern anymore, right? And that doesn't mean you shut down or you don't engage, you don't stand up for yourself, right? It's just making adjustments and using your discernment based on what you have seen in reality or what you've seen happen or things like that. And so again, the reflective questions is like, what's the point of this? Have I seen evidence before? Is this really something that I don't agree with, or is it just something neutral that I'm projecting my own jealousy, insecurity, fears onto, and therefore I don't want to do this, right? And another way you can think about it, like if my friend told me, someone I cared about, that the situation was going on, would I say that that's more being judgmental or more discerning, right? Sometimes when we remove ourselves and our own emotional connection to the piece in there, we can get a little bit more clarity on that. You can talk about it with someone you know and trust, but just again, this understanding that like being judgmental and being discerning are not the same thing. And a lot of us get talked out of being discerning because people want to control us or change our minds, or they want us to think a certain way, right? So being discerning is different than being judgmental. And of course, like always, this doesn't mean don't listen to your intuition. I know I talked about in this video, like being discerning includes like when there's evidence, right? But it also could just be like, I just get bad vibes from this place or this person or the situation or this event. I don't want to go here. I don't want to be involved, right? Something feels off for you. Like you can always listen to that, even if there's not evidence there. So, of course, you know yourself better than I do. You should listen to yourself more than me. Don't take my word for everything, right? But just thinking about these things for yourself, like, I'm noticing within myself that when there's evidence of someone acting a certain way, I try to talk myself out of it, right? And there doesn't have to be evidence, is my last point with this thing I'm saying here, of just you can trust your own intuition, and you can trust what feels right and what doesn't feel right for you, even if there isn't like quote unquote evidence that this person has acted or did act a certain way before. You have a right to say no, you have a right to not engage with the way that you want to. You can have your boundaries, right? You get to have a role in how much you engage with certain relationships and what that looks like for you. And so, to sum it up, like being judgmental, again, excessively critical or not based in anything that's actually substantial or helpful for things, whereas discerning is seeing and understanding clearly and intelligently. So saying no, having different boundaries, wanting different things to happen, right? So sparsing out those two things for you. If you want a free ride on this, you can think about, okay, what are some times where I was judgmental in my life and what were some times I was discerning? How was being judgmental not helpful and how was being discerning helpful for me, right? And just paying attention to when you want to do that. Maybe noticing a lot of times we're judgmental of things that are our own insecurities. When times when we're envious, we can judge other people. So just noticing like what are the difference between those two things and when do those come up, and looking at your own patterns like always, and just turning inward and thinking about, okay, when do I tend to do this one versus when do I tend to do that one? And so again, being judgmental versus being discerning, those are separate things, those are different things. And just thinking about this concept and thinking about when do I do which one of those, and what would it mean if I listened to myself and trusted that, like, okay, I've seen someone do this and this thing before, so I don't really want to engage with them anymore, right? Or what is going on here that I can see and understand clearly and intelligently. Like I can use logic to put these things together to make a different choice for myself. Okay, that's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. If you ever want any more information about me, all that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.